Hello.
Hey, Mom.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about lasagna.
Well, I know. Really?
What are we talking about?
No, I thought we'd be talking about peanut butter.
Was mine better than yours? That's the question.
Your lasagna?
Yeah. I have a hard time putting into words just how much beauty I find in a shared meal. It's something that was instilled in me from a young age because in my family, dinner was a really important affair. It's where we would come together to discuss our days, to listen, to laugh, and that made it such a jovial experience. We were a family of 5, but we always kept an open seat with a plate just in case one of our neighborhood friends came by looking for a meal. Our kitchen was connected to our garage door, which we pretty much always kept unlocked, so at any given moment, a friend could walk in and have a nice warm meal. My mom is an insanely good cook, and she excels at making amazing restaurant quality Italian food at home. Out of all the amazing things she makes, lasagna is an absolute top tier one. To me, lasagna is the ultimate I love and I care for you type of meal. It involves a lot of work, but it always ends up tasting like a laughter-filled dinner around the Marty family table. So I want to invite you in to dinner with my family. Come on in, the door's always open. To talk you through this meal, you first need to meet my parents. This is my mom, Michelle, and my dad, Doug. Look at how cute they are. They are the ones responsible for setting the stage of hospitality in our home growing up. My parents were really good at making sure that pretty much every single meal we ate was home cooked. I don't think I realized as a kid just how much work that was because it's a lot of attention and care to make meals like that constantly. Cooking, especially for a family, takes a ton of work and care and love. As Anthony Bourdain once said, anyone who cooks, anyone who writes a cookbook, in my view, I'm gonna assume they were on the side of the angels. You know, cooking is a nurturing thing. So who am I to argue with that? Cooking and hospitality sort of go hand in hand, but in my opinion, not all cooking shows hospitality. It's like a square and a rectangle, you know? All squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. It's not that simple. Honestly, in my opinion, to really show hospitality, you have to create a space of warmth and openness so that people can feel welcome in your home. I really think that's what made our open door policy so special. There was always an opportunity to love on a neighbor whenever they needed a hot meal. This type of hospitality isn't always common, and I think it has to be nurtured. My parents had to make the choice to cook enough food so that if somebody came by, there was gonna be enough for them to fill their plate. At a certain point, this became second nature to them, and we always had enough food because we could sort of just assume that somebody was gonna come by for either a dinner or sometimes a second dinner. Why is this important though? Like, why does this type of hospitality matter? Well, first off, hospitality creates a true memorable connection. People don't always remember what you say, but I can guarantee you people are gonna remember how you made them feel. If you go out of your way to make somebody feel cared for, to make them feel loved, to make them feel seen, I think you're both made better for that. Deeper relationships can be formed through hospitality as well. All of this is great, but honestly, a lot of the importance just comes from caring for another person. Opening yourself up like this vulnerably often doesn't really give you any results. You don't get any benefit from it. And I think that's sort of where the beauty lies in it. Hospitality reveals itself in the little things. An open seat, a warm smile, a delicious red sauce. I think that's sort of what people mean when they talk about love being an important ingredient in cooking. And trust me, a lot of love goes into this lasagna. We're gonna take the time to peel and mince the carrots so they break down into the sauce. We could use all ground beef in this, but the sausage brings more flavor and fat, and that goes a long way to make this deliciously unctuous. Some people like a pure bolognese for lasagna, meaning little tomato flavor in general, but we always used a much more American Italian style meat sauce. That's just how my family did it. The brightness from the tomato helps cut through the richness of the lasagna. By the time this sauce has cooked for a few hours, it really begins to sing. You get meatiness, richness, brightness, and a whole lot of love. So I wanted to get my mom into the kitchen for this next stage of cooking because I want to talk to you guys about tradition, passing things along to the future generations, and what gets lost as tradition changes over time. She's a great person to talk through this.
That's gonna go in the whole. You're gonna use all that
Yeah, all of this one.
And all of that.
Yeah, but I wasn't gonna use all of this of cottage cheese in it. I don't even use cottage cheese in my own. So you always eyeball it?
I do. It's terrible.
Have you ever measured it?
No.
You wanna help me do some or you wanna watch?
I want to drink my wine because when you're cooking Italian, you should always have wine. Granny put cinnamon in hers.
Nutmeg is like a thing with.
Nope, it was cinnamon. You have to put cinnamon. The lasagna isn't right unless you put cinnamon in
It
it.
feels like one of those
I never did.
lost in translation.
It is. What did you get? The red.
Yeah, what did you?
It's a French
good.
red.
French with Italian.
Then
So you might want to get the noodles on.
They're no oil. I forgot
What?
to say
Wow. But old school
that.
Italians boil their noodles. So okay, I don't ever do that.
No, I just realized I want to do this.
So how do you do it?
So I was doing sauce, noodle, cheese, sauce. Mozzarella wasn't even really in the party when I was doing it.
Well,
But then-
that is definitely not my way. So this is interesting. How would you like to try it? Do you want to try it Mom's way or do you want to try your way?
Well, I've had your way.
Do you like my way?
You haven't had it my way.
You're right, I have. You're gonna put your.
I know.
There we go.
Yeah.
You know, and
That's way more cheese than I was splitting.
I.
If we're doing your way, we need to. We got this
Well,
much
we may
cheese
have some
left.
extra cheese. There may be some extra cheese. We could put a little bit more. I know, but I didn't know the size of your pan.
I want to try yours.
Then we're gonna put noodles.
All right, let's do noodles.
All right. Made her own lasagna noodle slide.
She
My grandma,
was better than us.
100% Italian. She made her own lasagna noodles. No, I wouldn't use that one. You're not gonna need it.
We definitely are gonna need it.
No, I won't.
Yeah. No one's gonna see this. No one's gonna look at this layer and say, "Wow, that was
You're
great."
not gonna need it. But okay.
One thing that's struck me about this whole process of studying hospitality and my family's history with it is the nature in which dishes changed throughout our lives. Granny made this dish one specific way, and then my mom made it a different way. By the time we grew up, she had to change it again to adjust for our tastes. I now have the recipe and I make it a certain way, but if Megan Kay and I have kids and let's say maybe they don't like garlic or something, God forbid, then I'm gonna have to change it to adjust for their tastes. This process is a natural part of growing food culture, and I think it's a pretty good thing in general. That being said though, I do wanna understand where this story really starts, where it came from, why Granny made hers a certain way, and then why my mom changed it. Cooking and recipes have this hidden timeline sitting just below the surface, and in my opinion as cooks, it's our job to reveal and tell those stories. So what's the story of this lasagna? My great-grandmother is where it originates. Being from northern Italy, hers included fresh-made pasta every time. And that just goes to show just how much of a caring dish this really is. Just imagine making fresh pasta every time you wanted lasagna. It's kind of insane. I never got the chance to meet her, but my mom always says her favorite line was mangia, or eat in Italian. Basically, she was that classic, I'm gonna throw food at you anytime you come into my house, have you eaten, have you eaten? And that was just her style. That was great-grandmother. When my granny married great-grand's son, Angelo, Granny had to pick up Italian cooking. She learned it from her mother-in-law, and I think a lot of stuff got sort of lost in translation at this point. She insisted on cinnamon in the cheese mix, and I have no idea how that got there. By the time my mom got the recipe, she completely cut cinnamon out of the recipe, which I am very, very grateful for. My mom also found that ricotta was a little bit too sweet for her taste, so she got a tip from her sister-in-law, my dad's sister. Hey, replace the ricotta with cottage cheese, and it does a similar thing, but it's not as sweet. By the time this recipe reached me, I was graduating college and I thought, hey, I can figure this out better on my own. So I went on the journey of trying a bunch of different lasagna recipes, but it just wasn't the same as what I grew up with. And I think when you cook more and more and you start to develop recipes, at a certain point, you just start to crave and want to cook the stuff you grew up with. I can't really explain it. It's just a natural part of getting better at cooking. You sort of reach back into your roots at a certain point. You want, I guess, the stuff that you grew up with. You want the stuff from your childhood. So that's what I did. I grabbed the recipe from my mom. but stole some stuff from Granny as well. So ricotta was back in the mix with me. I make my sauce a little bit spicier than my mom ever would. And that's kind of the timeline of the recipe. Where it's at right now is probably not where it's gonna be at in the future. And that's, again, pretty okay. Was mine better than yours? That's the question.
Your lasagna?
Yeah.
The flavoring was there. It was very good. What I prefer...
Okay, so it was better than yours. Okay, got it.
No, it's not better than mine. I prefer cooked noodles. Your meat sauce was amazing. That was really delicious. And the cheese turned out great too. But overall, it was great lasagna.
Great lasagna.
Granny would be proud.
I'll take it. I mean,
Granny would definitely be proud.
I gotta be honest, I don't remember Granny's lasagna being that good by the time I had it last.
Well, it wasn't. It wasn't.
By the time Granny was cooking in those last years, she was not really caring that much about it.
No, and it was, her lasagna was definitely not one of my favorites.
No. Yeah, I feel like your version was really like the genesis of our like modern one. Like Ryan makes a lasagna similar to the one you make.
Yes.
I don't even know if Al makes it, but Al probably makes one similar. Although we all ended up with different versions of lasagna, they kind of tell the story of a dish evolving and changing throughout time. None of the recipes are better than the others. You can't say that. They're just more suited to the time and the people eating them. And that's a pretty amazing and beautiful thing. What great-grandmother made and what I make are probably unrecognizable to each other, yet I would still consider them the Marty lasagna. I don't know, like there's something to this that's similar to the Ship of Theseus, if you guys ever heard of that. It's like a philosophical thought experiment. The gist of it is you've got a ship, this famous ship, the Ship of Theseus, that's parked in harbor. Do you park a ship? It's resting in harbor, it's taking a little nap, and every year to maintain the ship's structure, a piece of wood, let's say a board, has to be replaced. At what point is this no longer the Ship of Theseus? Or is it ever no longer the Ship of Theseus? Is it the same thing? If the ship itself is completely new, completely replaced, is it still that same ship? It's a fun thought experiment. It kind of wraps up the idea of like changing over time and this concept of the whole being greater than the sum of its parts. And I think recipes are sort of like that. Like none of us can really say if it ever changed or if it's still kind of the same recipe. If it carries the same spirit of hospitality, honestly, who really cares? It's that same through line that's carrying it all the way to us now. And that's what you're getting at our dinner table. That's why I wanted to invite you in. And for us, that's lasagna. All of the tradition, warmth, and most importantly, hospitality wrapped up into one comforting dish. It's essentially a big welcome sign to the Marty family household. It's an invitation to come and to sit, to fill your plate and to eat, to feel welcome. At the end of the day, it's sort of the definition of our doors always open. Cheers. Well, thanks for doing this, Mom. I love you.
Sure. You're welcome. Love you too, honey.